Birds, people, and the dogs that bring them together. This is episode number 37. My name is Bill, and you're tied to the Woe Post. Today we're talking about wire-haired Vizslas with Kata Miller, who began her journey with dogs, collecting strays on the streets of Budapest to live with her in her family's 350-square-foot apartment. Her love for dogs would lead her to build experience as a service dog trainer in her home country of Hungary, to a certification in animal behavior, and ultimately to the development of her wire-haired Vizsla kennel, Canis, in Asheville, North Carolina. I'd like to thank you for listening, and I'd also like to thank my patrons who pledge $3 per month to keep the show going. If you'd like to become a patron, go to patreon.com/thewopost and sign up to receive monthly exclusive content. To see more of what the Woe Post and Gallant Gun Dogs do on a daily basis, check us out on Facebook or Instagram at the Woe Post, and also check out my website, www.thewopost.com. If you're listening to this as it airs, I should be up in the Upper Peninsula with my friend Jake Perry and his Gordon setters, and my small Munsterlanders and my Poodle Pointer going after some ruffed grouse and some woodcock. So hopefully we'll have some Facebook and Instagram content that you've already seen. Wire-haired Vizslas were developed in the 1930s in Hungary using two Vizsla bitches and a German wire-haired pointer stud. Some evidence later points to the introduction of Poodle Pointer, Irish Setter, English Pointer, and possibly even Bloodhound DNA into certain lines in the Czech Republic. Ultimately, the wire-haired Vizsla was recognized by the FCI as a breed in 1963 under the Hungarian breed standard. Wire-haired Vizslas were first imported into the U.S. in the 1970s and didn't gain full AKC recognition until 2014. Today, there are fewer than 1,000 wire-haired Vizslas in the U.S. Known to be very affectionate, wire-haired Vizslas will build strong bonds with their owners and are known to be a one-owner dog. They are great in the home once they reach maturity and are strong hunters in the field due to their medium size, sturdy build, and dense protective coat, which according to the breed standard is colored golden rust, but other acceptable colors include golden, red, red golden, rust, rust golden, which is somehow different from golden rust, and sandy yellow. And all those colors sound pretty much the same to me. They're typically taller than their smooth coat cousins. Males stand 23 to 25 inches at the withers, females 21.5 to 23 inches, and they typically weigh between 45 and 65 pounds. Hey, Kata, thanks for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
We're getting towards the end of this series on the knob to recognize versatile breeds, and today we're talking about wire-haired Vizslas, which you came very highly recommended as an ambassador of the breed. So can you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Thank you. I appreciate that. My name is Kata Miller with Canis Wirehaired Vizsla Kennels. Originally from Hungary, and I've been in the States for a long time now. Since 2007, lived pretty much all over the place. And I got my first Wirehaired Vizsla in 2016, 2 months after I had my third baby. So I had a baby, a newborn, and a 2-month-old puppy.
See, you had an 8-week-old baby and an 8-week-old puppy at the same time.
Yes, exactly. But it was fun. He was our third dog, so I wouldn't recommend it for first-time baby parents, to a human parents, to get a puppy, especially a high energy working dog. But it was definitely fun. It was fun watching the two of them kind of grow up together. And yeah, so he was our first. And then I feel like they're just like chips. You can't have one. And we have 8 now. So yeah, it got out of control.
But you haven't been collecting. I mean, you've got a plan for your dogs, right? But before we get too far into that, how did you get into bird dogs? When we were talking before, you didn't grow up with them, right?
No. I grew up in Budapest in a 350 square foot apartment, no dogs. When I was younger, I guess around 8, 9, we had a lot of street dogs or village dogs, you call them, and I would just collect them. I just would pick one up and take him home, or they would follow me around. And I didn't carry food. I think we just naturally gravitated towards each other. And then I took them home. My mom was not happy about that. And I like the big dogs. So I thought maybe she prefers smaller dogs. And I was wrong. She just didn't like dogs at all. And then, so she ended up telling me that she was allergic to them. And that's why we can't have dogs. By this time, she was a single mom, lived in a small apartment. So I just felt sad that I'm the only child in this world with a mom that is allergic to dogs. And but she really did try to help me be around dogs, help me find jobs at the local vet. Eventually, I worked with the Seeing Eye Dog Association in Hungary. So she did help me. And then fast forward to me getting married, moving to the States, getting my first dog from a shelter. She comes for a visit and he's all over her. They're loving each other. And I just looked at her and I said, Mom, how come you're not sneezing or you're not showing any allergic reaction? And she's like, oh, yeah, well, actually, I was not allergic to the dogs. I just lied to you because I didn't want to explain that I don't want to have a dog. I don't want to spend the money on it. I don't want to deal with it. So yeah, found out a long, long time later that she was just fake allergic.
It really is a great story. And I guess you can look back at maybe some of the things that you have to maybe tell small little white lies to your kids in order to shape or modify behavior or things like that. And you say, well, at least I'm not depriving them of dogs, right?
Yes, and it's funny you say that because we have a lot of dogs, and my son, he's almost 15, and he constantly tells me, I'm not a dog person. I'm not a dog person. And he says, when I grow up, I will only have two dogs because I'm not a dog person. And I said, okay, he sleeps with two dogs and he's not a dog person. So if
Right.
it's only the worst that I created a non-dog person that only has to have two dogs, I think I'll be happy with that.
Yeah, I think that's okay. Now, do your kids gravitate towards the wire-haired Vizslas, or do they say, "Oh, when I grow up, I'm going to have a dog, but it's going to be Pekingese or something"?
And no, they do have my middle one, who's almost 13. She changed from Wirehaired Vizslas to mini Teckles because she said she needed more room in her bed. And she knew that I want non-shedding dogs in the house, and that's why she ended up going with the mini Teckles. And then my youngest one, she's 8. She wanted a Dalmatian Wirehaired Vizsla mix. So I did a little search on the website and I start showing her the German Wirehaired pointers and the Drafars, and she says, that's the one. And so eventually I think we might have to get a German dog other than the mini tackle, but I'm really hoping that she's going to just stick to the wires. So
Now, I'm assuming that through your training and everything, you've been around some of the German continental versatile breeds, but probably more than once, probably more than you have the wire-haired Vizslas.
I've worked with all kinds of breeds because originally I went to animal behavior college, so I've learned animal behavior, and that was originally my path is to work with aggressive dogs, problem behavior dogs. That's where actually the kennel name comes from. Canis in Latin means take care of the dog, and I wanted to show owners that even if you have a dog with problem behavior, it's not it's fixable. If you can understand what the dog is trying to say, then you can take care of them. And all of a sudden, it's just miscommunication most of the time why those dogs are aggressive. So I worked for about 17 years with all breeds. And then when I started the gun dog training, most of them were GSPs, labs, and a couple of wires. And then I slowly figured out that a lot of some of these breeds, like the poodle pointers too, they're softer, or the European lines, those are much softer than the American lines. And one of my friends just called me a breed snob because I got to a point where I get most of the Wirehaired Vizslas to train. I get a couple of griffs, some poodle pointers, but most of the German dogs, I just recommend them to somebody else one of my other friends or a couple of my other breeder friends or trainer friends that I know that they can handle the GSPs and that higher, the knuckleheads. When they say, "Oh, they're just too soft, we can't deal with them," I'll take those. Um, so we kind of trade.
So why do you think you've gravitated more towards the softer dogs beyond, I'm sure that it's a lot of trainer personality, but what is it that you like training the softer dogs more so than the more stubborn dogs, which I think sometimes a harder dog is a little bit easier to train because you get away with a lot more.
Yes, and I think it goes back to the behavior issues that I used to, before I had dogs, I would go to dog parks and just watch dogs, watch them interact with each other, or videotape them and then watch them in slow motion to see, okay, this dog attacked that dog. Why did you do that? What happened? Something had to happen. So I don't just take a dog out of a kennel and then work with them for 5, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, and then put them back in the kennel. When I have a dog come in, I spend time with that dog. I want to create a bond, a relationship. And then I think that's the difference with me is that I gravitate towards these dogs and people too. They understand that my dog sleeps in the bed with me. I don't want to put them in a kennel. I rather send this dog to somebody that will take their time and create that bond. And then eventually the dog will want to work with me. It's not that they have the desire, they have the love for the birds and for to work. But a lot of times these sensitive dogs, they're going to look at you like, what are you going to give me? Why should I do this for you? One of my best example was a poodle. I worked with her for a while. And then when we moved, they sent her to another trainer. And I always called her fancy because she was very fancy. And fancy just wouldn't work for that other trainer. So she ended up coming back and after a week or so, she started doing everything like she used to. And they're out hunting, they're doing everything, but just to have that extra time with them where I'll take them out and sometimes we just go and play fetch or sometimes we just go for a walk, but it's just the two of us. And I love spending that time with them because you create such a bond. Anytime I see these dogs that I work with, they're jumping all over me. They're so excited to see me. And it's just, I think for me, that's what it is about, is to have that bond with that dog.
Now, are you still primarily working with the behavior issue dogs, or are you all gun dogs now?
It's gun dogs. The difference is that when they're here, they're part of the family, so they have to behave. They have to do the obedience. If there are issues around food, all the dogs eat together. They all sit in a big circle in the garage. They all have to wait until I release them to eat. And most of the time, the newbies just gonna look a little confused, try to take food from others. I correct them, someone else corrects them, or one of the dogs will correct them. And by the end of the day, by the second day, everyone understands that this is the rule. We go out here, we sit on this spot, and we wait until she says okay, and then we'll eat. So in a way, I do put that behavior training in that gun dog training. Going through doors, the same thing. You all have to stand or sit, and the calmest, and usually whoever is the furthest will get to go through the door. And just saying their names, that's the one that can go through the door.
I do the same thing here. And, we that's the first thing that we do every morning. Once we get outside, I have two puppies that are, well, one is 5 months today, and the other one's a week behind him. So I don't make them wait as long, especially on the way out after being in the crate overnight. They get to go straight out. The
Yes.
older dogs have to wait. And it's laziness on my part. I just don't want to clean it up if they decide
Mhm.
that today's the day I'm not going to hold it. You can make that decision outside, but on the way inside, it's similar. Everybody's got to sit, and my rule is the first dog to sit, as long as you hold the position correctly, is the one that gets to come in. And sometimes the big dogs are looking at me kind of cross-eyed, like, why did the youngest puppy get to go in first? Like, she's not in charge here. I am. And but sometimes it's just the way it works out. Sometimes the big dog is the last one. When I call him in, sometimes it's the last one to get there and be the last one to sit, so it gets to wait until everybody else goes in.
Yeah. And I think generalizing how you train a dog is one thing, but they're so different. You're training the individual, not the breed, and I think that goes with the puppies too. I usually let my puppies out at a different door after I let everyone else out, just because of the same reason. In the morning, just get out, do your job, and then during the day is when we can actually work and focus on the door manners.
And so much of this is very important for people that like to test their dogs. I've got a little bit of NAVDA experience now, and I believe that all of the skills are demonstrated very, very young. And it's the advanced tests, and particularly prizing well on those advanced tests, are going to be a factor of how obedient and how cooperative the dog is. The skills really don't get any harder. It's the execution and the discipline that's what's assessed, right?
Yeah, the genetics are in them. It's really hard to ruin a good bird dog.
Right.
That's what the NA is for, to show that they have it in them. Now it's up to you to put that work in where they're going to be steady and obedient and cooperative. That's the hard work.
Right. So, aside from the common geographical background, why did you decide to go with wire-haired Vizslas as your breed of choice?
It all started with my husband actually, because he wanted to get back into hunting, and all of his friends had GSVs and he wanted one. And I said, absolutely no. And mostly because I am Hungarian and we have fantastic Hungarian hunting dogs. So I told him that it has to be either a smoothie or a wire-haired Vizsla. These are the only two options that we have. And we went with the wire-haired because of the shedding. I keep the dogs inside. I don't want to constantly clean, and I have killed vacuums. We had a lab mix, and he destroyed vacuums. So I told him no more shedding dogs, and that's how we ended up with them. And our first one didn't even hunt for almost 2 years because I didn't know what I was doing.
Now, are you hunting too, or is it just the husband who hunts it and you do the training, or?
I carry a gun just in case I get into a position where I can actually shoot. I'm not a very good shot, so I let someone else shoot. And even this season, I haven't been out hunting. The dogs have been out with my son and with my husband. They're both much, much better shots than me. And I get caught in the moment, dog looks pretty, bird takes off, pictures.
It's pretty easy to get caught in that moment, I think. I'm with you on that one. And you guys are in Western North Carolina, so what are you guys hunting right now?
Usually now it's dove.
Okay.
And then we hunt at a preserve mostly because it's the easiest right now with the small
Hmm.
kids and school. Um, the preserve is close enough for me to drop kids off at school in the morning, go out, hunt, and then on the way home I pick them up, and then I can just put dogs up and be a mom. So it's a match made in heaven. Um, Eventually, when the kids leave, we would like to go and do wild bird hunting, but we still got about 10 years.
Sure. Yep. And I know you guys will get a pretty decent woodcock flight, kind of that mid to late season, or mid season for woodcock by the time they get down towards you. And Eastern North Carolina can be really good. I'm not sure about in the mountains where you are.
Yeah, we don't have much. You have to, they're almost like, yeah, you go hunting out there, and you got to walk through the woods for half a day to hear one.
Yeah.
So yeah, we don't have much.
Yeah, we have kind of a similar situation here, but last fall I spent some time in kind of north central Pennsylvania looking for grouse, and they're there and you'll hear them flush wild 100 yards away and stuff like that, but you just generally, I mean, we didn't get a shot off. We heard wild flushes and that was about it, and they're just not very common there. And you can find that you put in some work and you gain and lose some altitude pretty quickly just to hear a bird. So
Yeah, and I don't mind the preserve hunt. I know a lot of hunters will say that's not real hunting, but it is a great thing for the puppies when I can assure that they're going to be out there. Those birds are going to be out there no matter what. And when we're out there hunting with puppies, 5, 6 months old puppies, and to see how first they start busting birds, and by the 6, 7 covey, they understand it. And here we are at the end of the day, taking out a puppy that had no idea what they were doing, and now they're actually pointing and hunting. So I don't hate the preserve. I know that it's more proper if you're hunting on wild birds, but it's definitely good for younger dogs or even older dogs. I take the 8-year-old dog out in the afternoon, and he thinks it's the best day of his life, and whatever makes the dogs happy.
Right. I mean, I've done my fair share of them. I prefer to get out on wild birds whenever possible, but I'm good for probably a couple put and take hunts, every year now. And it's a great way to introduce a kid maybe to
Mhm.
hunting because they're going to see a lot of birds and they're going to get a lot of shots. You know that for a fact. Great thing for a new dog because sometimes you can you'll get the guide to mark where he puts the birds out so you can actually put your dog in situations if you want to. So I'm definitely not against the preserve hunts. I have my preference, but I've done my fair share of those. So
Yeah, and I guide them too, so it's easier that way because I also know where we usually put the birds, and if it's a puppy, then I'll definitely take the puppy there.
right. Um, so getting back to the wire-haired Vizslas a little bit. So I'm assuming that this dog has a much more resilient or better resilience to the cold than the smooth coated.
So
And
yeah, that was the idea of developing the breed. Actually came from hunters, just talking about what could we do to make the Vizsla better or different. And the only thing that they knew that the goal is to make the dog look just like a smooth haired, with the same color, same head shape, same body type, and the same temperament. And that's how they ended up mixing it. It was the 1930s when they started to do that. And they chose one liver, solid liver German Wirehaired pointer, and bred him to two smooth girls, smooth Vizslas. And then from those puppies, they had everything in those two litters. They had liver puppies, they had yellow puppies, they had smooth, they had everything. It
sure,
was pure mud. And but they picked the ones that they thought would look mostly like a Wirehaired Vizsla in the future, and bred them. And from that, her name was Dina, I think, Dia. Her name was Dia, and so she was the first official Wirehaired Vizsla that they could show and present and say, okay, this is kind of what we're looking for. And then in the 60s was when the Hungarian government ended up taking over and saying, okay, let's focus on this breed and let's develop it. So the Hungarian government actually financially supported this breeding program.
oh
Uh,
wow,
yeah, because they knew that the goal is there. The goal was a good idea, you know, having a more robust dog for the winters, but they wanted to make sure that the temperament was very important for them to keep that Vizsla attitude, the cat-like, the snuggle bugs, but also very hardworking and the versatile that. And a lot of people think that versatile only means on the field. Most of these dogs live in the city or in an apartment, so they had to be able to just sleep on the couch if they had to, but also work on the field, and not just on the field, but in the woods. They have to point, they have to track, they have to flush birds, they have to swim, they have to have a soft mouth, they have to retrieve. And that's actually one of the things in Hungary. You can't breed until you test your dog on the field and in the show. And one of the part of the test for the Vizslas is that they have to have a natural retrieve. That you can't force fetch them. They have to have that in them. If they don't retrieve, if they don't swim, you can't breed them. So there goes always my disagreement with people when they say you have to force fetch a dog, that there are some of them that you don't have to, because they selectively breed the ones that will retrieve and willing to retrieve and swim and do all of those that the natural, it's in the genetics.
Are we still seeing that here with the North American wire-haired Vizslas that they'll have that good, strong, natural retrieve?
I think the ones that are focusing on that, there are a handful of breeders and hunters that focus on that. I can't really speak for the ones that are only in the show. I know I see the difference between coat types. That is definitely splitting, even though the club is trying their best not to split the breed. But I think it's naturally going to happen. Because some people like the longer coats, the longer, fluffier coat. I personally like the medium harsh coat. I have been told, I do show my dogs in AKC, and I have been told by judges that my dog's coat are too harsh, that they have to be. They're field dogs. I'm not going to sit after a hunt and pick everything out of my fluffy dog. I need to have a harsh coat that's waterproof, that's I can just brush off all these stickers and move on.
No secret, that's a lot of hunters and field breeders' frustration with AKC is the influence on the aesthetic side of conformation versus what the breed standard was actually created for, which is the overall utility and health of the dog.
Yeah, and I've had people tell me that you have to create the dogs for your audience, and I said no, I disagree with that because I'm going to create the breed. I'm going to try to perfect the breed, and my audience will then follow. And those people are going to be my audience. I will not make fluffy or try to create fluffy dogs because they look cute when they're puppies. They're not going to be useful on the field. I need that harsh coat that is useful, and the health and the temperament is all very important.
If the coat is a difference between you taking away a best of breed versus not, it's still a win because you still got to spend a day with your dog and around other dog people.
Yes. And it's funny though, because we have gotten one of my girls, she's now a grand champion, but I can't tell you how many judges looked at her. And even though they picked her either best of opposite or best of breed, they did laugh at her saying, she looks so pathetic in the ring. Is she bored? And I said, absolutely.
Yeah.
She's very bored. And I'm sorry to say that, but yes, she is. She'll pick up her head if she hears a bird kind of sound or if she sees some wings. But I said, yeah, she knows that the field is so much better place.
Right. I remember doing an IABCA show with one of my female small Munsterlanders, actually the one that's laying down over here. And the judge is trying to get her to perk her ears up a little bit to get the best look at her ear set, right? And she's just not into it. There's a lot of dogs moving around all the time. She's in there on this cement floor. It was cold in there and it just wasn't very fun. And he's just making every little squeak sound and snapping his fingers and, in front of the dog and smiling and everything that he could possibly do to just get her to look at him and, cock her ears and tilt her head a little bit or whatever. And she's just not into it. And I kind of told him the same thing. I said, she's not excited to be here right now. Unfortunately, she'd much rather be out in the field. And if there was a bird, some wild bird, songbird or something that flushes up next to her, then you should look at her ears then. And, I can show you some great pictures if you want to see a great ear set, but you're probably not going to see it here. But what I like about the IABCA shows versus the AKC shows is you actually get that written assessment from each judge. So over the course of a weekend, you'll get 5 individual written evaluations of your dog's conformation, which I use as a breeder.
Yes, I do too. I think it's pretty amazing to compare the judges. Especially, I'm very happy when an international judge likes my dogs because they always point out that your dogs are fit. They're not skinny, they're fit. Versus in
Right.
APC, my dogs are always the skinny ones. And just these little small details. Like, yes, they're working dogs. They should be fat. They can't run on the field if they're fat.
We actually had Laura Reeves on the show just a couple weeks ago, and she has kind of evolved herself into the conformation world with German wire-haired pointers, but kind of grew up as a hunter and still runs her dogs in the field. I don't know that she hunts so much anymore, but she field tests all of her dogs and makes sure that they're a good representative of the breed prior to selectively breeding for conformation. So I've got to give her credit in that she still looks for that utility with the dog.
Yes. It's not easy. It's not easy to have to do both here. I think it's easier in Europe because that's their goal is to have that versatility and you don't just have to have a good hunting dog. They have to look like the standard. They have to have health clearances. They have to have all of that. Here, anybody can breed. You know, nobody's going to check. Other than sending your hip X-rays to OFA, there's not much that a breeder has to do. You know, even within the club, I was one of the directors for a while, and I always suggested that we should come up with something where we, as a club, requesting that you can only breed if you have all these titles or health tests, and it was always well, it's not up to us. It's up to AKC.
That's the challenge with AKCs. You can't have a breed restricted dog in the show ring at all. So your dog will miss out on all the puppy shows and, sort of those younger junior, titles if you want to do it what you and I would call the right way.
Yeah,
You'll never
exactly.
get that buy-in with AKC. That's not going to happen. That's not what they're there for.
No, not at all. No, but that's why I want to do the junior hunt test with the puppies. I do NAFTA, do the NA. I am preparing the older ones for UT. We did miss out on UT last spring, which was really frustrating because I thought we were ready and we were going to go, and when we registered, we got the sorry, we're full email.
Yeah, they fill up quickly. And now with the new portal, I know our chapter here is almost full for our tests that we're going to have in the third weekend in August of 25.
That's crazy.
It really is.
And I remember I have one of my friend told me that if you want to run a puppy, it's best if you just reserve your spot. And I have done that before when I told the secretary that I don't know if it's a male or a female. I don't know the name. I don't know when he's gonna or she's gonna born, but I want a spot. And here's my money. Here's my registration that's halfway filled out. And when I know anything, I will let you know just to have that spot.
Yep. Yeah, I think most test secretaries will work with you on that. But for my female puppy, we had a standby spot for this coming weekend, but it's Tuesday and the test would be Saturday or Sunday. I haven't heard anything yet, and I'm not going to hold the weekend if I don't hear anything by the end of the day tomorrow. Then I'm driving up to the Upper Peninsula and look for grouse and woodcock. I'm not going to wait for a maybe natural ability test, and she's not even 5 months old yet, so I can handle that in the spring. But
Yeah,
if I don't get the phone call, I will be reserving a spot this week before I drive out.
exactly.
So getting back to the wire-haired Vizslas, aside from the coat, how are they going to be different from the smooth coat Vizslas?
I think the temperament is different too a little bit. They're a little bit calmer. Again, especially, I mean, even in Hungary, the smoothies are a little bit more. And then if you compare them here to the American bred Vizslas, absolutely, they're a lot calmer. And then they just have that natural instinct, the natural retrieve, the cooperation. I think that is the biggest difference. They can be inside, they can be inside dogs.
And I know you said that's a big requirement for you is to keep the dogs, keep them close for cooperation and obedience purposes.
Yes, and I mean I always appreciate judges when even if we fail a hunt test, we've done that in senior and AKC where we failed miserably, but both judges came to me and told me that they've never seen a bond between a handler and a dog like we have. I've had one dog that was before we failed. He failed to honor a dog that was pointing at feathers, and before that, he kind of lost me. I went one way, he was hunting on the other side of the field, and he went back to the group of people, and he couldn't find me. And when he couldn't find me, he freaked out, and he was on his back legs looking for me like a meerkat, hopping in the tall grass. And when I waved to him, he ran to me and he jumped all over me like, oh my God. Where have you been? He was just beyond himself happy that, and then we could go back on and hunt. And then, yeah, and then he didn't honor that dog. So then we got to be done. But the judges were amazed to see that he has that connection with me where he freaks out and he stops hunting until he finds me.
Did you know that he was looking for you frantically, or were you just
So
confident that he would find you?
I saw it, yeah, and I knew that I just have to wave and call him, and he'll find me. But I've done that when we hunted with friends, and I was hunting with one of our girls who was halfway through whelping and or pregnancy. So I wanted to take her back to the truck and left a couple of other dogs with our friends who they know. And all of a sudden, as I'm walking back from the truck, the dogs show up with birds in their mouth. And we went back to the group and I asked them what happened. And they said, oh, they did great. They hunted, they pointed, we flushed a bird, we shot them, they went after them. And then they freaked out because then they were like, oh, where is she? And then they were abandoned and they left them and they came back to the truck because that was their first thought, I guess, or they tracked me. I don't know. But they're just those kind of dogs that they are such people, they're like owner oriented. Even if I'm hunting with my husband, they will bring me the bird. I am the dog handler. Friends make fun of him because the dog he can't walk the dogs on a leash without pulling them because they just want to come and heel next to me. And the second he takes them off the leash, they just come and heel next to me, and then everything is fine. But yeah, they're absolutely, very, very people oriented. They're owner oriented beyond Velcro.
So it's pretty safe to say that they're generally a one owner dog.
Yeah, I would say absolutely. Even in the pack, I have so many of them. But every time I get a new one, I always separate them from the pack. And whatever we're doing is just you and I. It's just the two of us. So I get to the point where I can take 8 of them out or 10 of them out, or depending on how many we have here, even client dogs. That's why I separate them first, that I just want to create that bond with them so I can have that individual attention even in the pack. If we're out on the field with 10 dogs running around and I'm calling one of you, I want you to come to me. Mostly, everyone will come. But when I want that individual's attention, I want that individual to pay attention to me and not to playing with someone else. Because, you can have fun, but if I say come, then they know, okay, she called, we got to go and we're going to stop playing.
Sure. And I think singling that dog out early on just minimizes distraction. That's step one,
Yeah.
obedience, right? So control the environment,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I know I've heard of people before calling it, putting them in the aquarium. Like I can control everything. This is the bubble. Nothing else happens in here except for me and you.
Yeah. I like that.
So the wire-haired Vizslas, they're a pretty new breed then.
Yeah. They started in Hungary. I mean, the idea came in 1930, but then the petition to the government to support the breeding program was in the early 40s. So it's still relatively new in Hungary. And if you look at the amount of the registered dogs, even in Hungary, there aren't too many because most hunters will use the wire-haired Vizslas versus the smoothies. And they don't really care about registering their dogs. They just want good hunting dogs with a harsh wire code, and that's their goal. Same here. I think the number is growing much faster since AKC accepted them, but that's where you can also see the change in the breed. Once AKC accepts, and there was some issue between the Hungarian Kennel Club and AKC just because they didn't want the dogs to be accepted because they were worried that the breed is going to change.
It always scares me because, my breed of choice here, my small Munsterlanders are in the process of getting full AKC recognition. So right now we're still in the miscellaneous category. But once we have enough certificate of merit dogs, then we'll be sporting dogs. And I'm not, I don't know, in some way, I know that it's the best for the breed because that's what's going to allow us to build more diversity within the gene pool. But then in
Mhm.
another way, I know that we're going to see these, these little fluffy small Munsterlanders with big fluffy tails and soft fluffy coats and overly dramatic feathering and all this stuff. And these are things about the dog that I like, but not too much. I mean, I'm still the guy picking the cockleburs out, at the end of the day.
Exactly.
So by the end of the hunting season, they don't look the same as they did in the beginning of the season. A lot of those furnishings have been pulled out. That is a concern of mine, and I know it's a concern of all the breeders. But we also know again that it is the best for the dog in the long run.
Yeah, and I mean, you can only hope. You can only hope for the best. And with the Wirehaired Vizslas, the coat is just one of many things that we have to pay attention to. And coat is not very easy to recognize. And with the hand stripping, you know, some puppies will look that they're going to be very fluffy, and just by pulling out those baby hairs, you're going to end up with a fantastic coat. But that's another thing that people don't know what they're looking for. They just look at a puppy picture and then they either say, I don't want this dog because it looks smooth, when in reality, that dog is going to have very nice wire coat. They just don't have that much puppy coat. Or you're going to have another fluffy puppy. And like my one of my girls, when she was a baby, she looked like a hairy beast. And all I had to do was just pull out her baby coat, and she now has the best coat ever. And it just I also wish people weren't too judgmental about just looking at a picture and say, this is what I want, or this is what I don't want, or this is not what I want. The Don't judge the puppy pictures. I like to send videos to my puppy people for that same reason. That don't just fall in love with the picture. Understand what you're getting.
And you're gonna like the dog anyway. I have my preference for the coat in the small Munsterlander. We have there's a not a huge amount of variety. It's not like we're labs and you've got, every color in the rainbow now. But there's a bit of variety in the coats for the small Munsterlanders, and I certainly have my preference. And when I was paired with my newest puppy, she doesn't meet that mold. But that's what, the breeder where I get my dogs from, she said, "Hey, this is gonna be the right dog for you, and this is the one you want. This is the one that's gonna conform the best. It's gonna be the healthiest, we think, and will be a good mom and all the things that a breeder would be looking for." But she doesn't have the same paint job as what I like. But I'll tell you, 4.5 months later, or well, 2.5 months later, because obviously she was 8 weeks old when I got her. I love that little dog, and she's gorgeous, right, to me. But when I picked her up, I was kind of like, ugh.
I know, that's how I was with mine. She was my pick. She was my second puppy that was born into my hand. We have a very unique, I wouldn't say like a special bond like people think about, like, match made in heaven. But we definitely have a very unique bond. And I tell my puppy people too, don't fall in love with a picture. Don't tell me what is your favorite color, because I will pick the puppy for you.
So, what are some of the things that you're looking for then in your puppies once you can start to pick them out? If it's one that you want to keep for your breeding program, what are you looking for?
That's tough. I like firecrackers. I like the one that goes out there. So I watch them. I mean, I spend a lot of time with the puppies, and 4 weeks is when they move out of the whelping box into a little play area with a crate. So I start crate training at 4 weeks. I put them on wings at 5 weeks, and then on quail at 6 weeks. And that usually at that 6 weeks, when they start playing with a quail or pigeon, is when I'm starting to see that personality that I'm looking for, the firecracker, the one that knocks down everybody that a lot of people don't want. My hunters, there are a couple of them that will say we want that, and that's how I also select the puppies to their owners. Is the owners tell me what they're looking for, and we talk a lot. I talk to my people a lot just to figure out who would be the best match for them. And so that's the thing with me too, is that, personality, who's coming to me first when I whistle. That is one of the things that I look at. Who's the last one in the crate after we're out? who is the last one coming out of the crate, who is the first one coming out of the crate. So there are a bunch of these things. I even look at how they eat, who eats fast, who eats slow, who is picky, who is not. So there are a lot of details going into picking a puppy.
Is your preference towards the slower eater or the faster eater?
Slower eater.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. I definitely wanted to hear that, or wanted to hear your opinion on that, because I've got the 5 month old male who is still in the slow feeder. He's going out as a started dog, and when he leaves, his bowl is going to go with him because I think he needs it. How many dogs did you say you have in the kennel now?
We have 10, but one is our outside dog, our guard dog.
Sure.
9 in the house.
9 in the house. That's a lot for in the house, though.
8 Vizslas and the mini tackle. So the mini tackle is just tiny. So maybe
Right.
I shouldn't even count her as a whole dog.
And the tackles will hunt too, right?
We take her hunting, yeah. She's extremely stubborn. She's a fantastic little puppy. We also call her the little dragon because she acts like she's 140 pounds. When we go out hunting, I do put a long line on her just for safety reasons. I'm terrified of losing her into a foxhole. She loves going into holes. And I have had friends tell me, just take a shovel. I'm like, I just take a long line and pull her out. If she sees a dog on point, you've never seen a faster dog just running there and looking for the bird in the tall grass, and she'll flush them. She will pick up a shot bird, quail or pigeon, chucker. She will retrieve when she wants to.
Do you think just the bigger birds are just a little tougher for
She's just she's not very cooperative. She
her?
wasn't meant to be a bird hunter. She loves it.
I'd imagine it's pretty fun to let the little fur missile get in there and flush, though.
She's fantastic.
Are you doing that with clients or just with you guys when you're out in the field?
Usually it's mostly us, but we have so many people now that know that she also comes, and then they request her. And then we just want to watch what she does because it's fun to watch this tiny little, 7, 8 pound dog run with the big dogs. And when she gets tired, we just put her in the bird bag, and then when we get closer to the birds, then we put her out again. And it's hilarious to watch this little thing run.
My wife really wants she wants a smaller dog that she can cuddle with. And, do you think a tackle is going to fit that bill, or is the tackle just a little bit too high energy?
No, and they're more of a one person dog than the Vizslas. They're absolutely when my daughter is here, this little one, she is hers, and my alarm goes off to go get the kids. She's the first one at the front door because she comes with me to school pickup. And she's just running back and forth between the front door and me, looking at me like, come on, come on, come on. I'm like, no, we still got 15 more minutes. When my daughter shows up, she couldn't care less about anybody. It's just her.
Really? I'm trying to convince my wife that she wants an English Cocker Spaniel, but
Ooh,
I'm not sure that she does.
I know, it's a lot.
Well, it's a dog that I could still use to flush birds. So,
Yeah, it's true.
so of your wire-haired Vizslas that you've had so far, what's do you think like the one or two that stood out to you as the best wires that you've had?
I kind of, my kids always ask me who is my favorite, and I always say it goes different. It's always different by the day, but my first one who is way too hairy. If I was picking my first one out now, he would not be the one. He's an amazing hunting dog. Other than his coat, he fits the bill. Plus more, my son was diagnosed with epilepsy when he was 7, and he only had seizures at night. And what I ended up doing was, because I didn't really know how to keep him safe and sleep at the same time. So I trained him to turn his head when at night when he had a seizure. That's how my son ended up sleeping with only 2 dogs. Originally, he only slept with one because of his seizures. And to have that dog that you can go out hunting, you can go to school for a career day to introduce kids to dogs, to the dog that knows that if you fall down and you start having a seizure, all I have to do is run next to you, lay next to you, and turn your head. And that is just, that's just absolutely, he's really in my heart for that reason. Just to know that he's has kept my son safe for years and years and years. And knock on wood, we haven't had seizures for years. But even if I ask him if my son is okay, he will immediately look around and look and find him and then goes and attacks him, jumps over him and he's like, yeah, he's standing. I don't have to do anything. So he just kind of sneezes, out of love, like, yes, he's fine.
That's really cool that so you had a truly versatile dog. I mean that, you mentioned before how, in the hunting world, versatility has a very narrow definition, but
Mhm.
in the dog world writ large, it's,
Oh,
it's a
yeah.
much broader thing. And you
Yeah.
had that right in your home.
Yeah. And then I have my other one, the one that was born in my hand, who, when she was born, I looked at her and I knew this was going to be my VC dog. And then at 8 months old, after our NA test, we did a double hunt test at AKC, where in the third brace, she was naturally backing the other puppy. And the other handler didn't see her and just pointed the blank behind him and shot her in the face. And she collapsed like she was shot. And my judge looked at me and said, I hope that didn't affect her. And I said, if it didn't, then she's not made out of a living thing because that affects anybody. And sure enough, we finished that brace. We didn't get a pass because she was done. She finished her fourth brace. But after that, when we came home, I went out, put some birds out for her, and she immediately turned around from the field, ran back to the house, and she was ruined. She was so ruined. I can't tell you for how long I just cried over the fact that this was my VC dog. This was the dog that was going to do everything and will do everything. And now she's so gun shy that I don't even know how to get her back. And it it was a long road. What she really taught me. Fast forward now, she is 3.5, and she's a crazy birdie dog. She's the one that I was going to do UT in the spring, but we missed out on the registration. She's fantastic. She loves to hunt. She's the one that now will jump fences because she knows that there are birds out on the field. So she did come back amazingly, but she also taught me that, you can have your goals, you can have your dreams, stuff happens, and then your goals don't have to change. It might just take a little longer. And that's where we are now. She didn't become a VC at 2, but she might become a VC at 4 or 5. She's definitely a UT dog, but I just want to make sure that on that particular day, she's going to perform as well.
The dog gets a vote, the environment gets a vote, and unfortunately, the other, your brace mate's handler
Yeah.
was not a positive part of the environment. What was the interaction with you and him like after that, I wonder?
Well, he asked me how did we do, and I said she did great until you shot her in the face and ruined her.
Yeah.
He apologized to me, he apologized to her, but after that, he never said a word to me. And we have seen each other since then. We ran seniors. I do give him a hard time every single time I see him. When we run together in senior or higher levels, I just tell him, just don't shoot my dog in the face. Don't ruin my dogs. And in junior, I tell that to every brace mate that I'm running with. Look for the dogs. Do not shoot your blank unless you see both dogs and the people around you. And now some of the judges also know they were there, or they've heard about us, and they know that, all right, here goes Kata. Kata has to tell you something. So they're definitely I'm a lot more aware, and tell people, watch my dog, do not ruin my dog. Or if I run a client dog, I tell them, this is not my dog, do not shoot the dog. And some people look at me like, why would I do that? I said, speaking of experience.
I can tell you if I didn't know the story and you were my brace mate at an AKC hunt test and you told me that, I'd be like, wow, why is this person talking down to me? Like, but I think, experience is what builds us as, as people. And I think your experience justifies the safety brief.
Yeah. I can't tell you. I mean, when we guide, we have the hunters shoot clays, and that's when I decide who needs to stand where. And I have told hunters that you just walk next to me, and I will tell you when to shoot. And then I never tell them when to shoot because of the way they handle the gun. And I don't want my dogs getting shot. And you hear all these horror stories about dogs getting shot on the field and for guides. And I'm not going to put my dog in that position where I've had that where a hunter shot in front of my dogs on the ground. And I felt like my world just fell apart. And then I had the word with him too, like, don't you ever. And even though I have said that before, because we always have this safety talk before the hunt, I level up and don't shoot the dogs and safety first. And they still, some guys just either don't listen or they get caught in the moment and they just get so excited to shoot something that they end up accidentally might shooting the dog. And those are the ones that now, here we go, we're going to do the clay shooting first. Let me see how you handle the gun. And then I can tell you when to shoot, how to shoot.
Are you guiding a lot of like corporate business trips and things like that where maybe people aren't the most experienced with firearms or with hunting at all?
I have done that. And when that happened, there was one group where they were literally, another guide was just teaching them how to shoot. And I said, I'm not going to put my dogs in front of you. The other guide said, okay, I will. I said, you go for it. I'm not. I'm just not. But I have the ones that, it started out with some friends and then friends recommended us to other friends. So they're the people that the new people I'm always nervous about. But again, I test them with the clay shooting. But if they're brand new, I'm not going to. It's not no money worth it for me.
Now, I've talked to other guides that'll go and, they'll let their dog hunt, but then when the dog goes on point, they'll go up, put the dog on a check cord, and then have the shooter flush the bird. So the shooter should be out in front of the dog. And, I think that's their way of mitigating as many potential accidents as possible. Yeah, I don't know if it's something that I would really want to do with my dogs. I don't trust a lot of people. So
And luckily, I've had really amazing hunters that we've hunted with. And I mean, you generally have an idea of the people when you talk to them. And I think that's what a lot of guides forget is just to talk to these people, talk to these hunters and find out, is it somebody that you feel confident with? And if you don't, then it's not worth it for me, at least. I'd
no,
rather have a dog that will hunt tomorrow than go out to make some money and then not have a dog at the end of the day.
sure. And I know I just read a story earlier today about a hunter that lost his dog to coyote hunters,
I saw that. That
and
is horrible.
a terrible situation and hard to fault somebody when you're not in the situation and you don't know what truly happened or whatever. But I think, obviously didn't have a good picture of what their target was.
But then, and honestly, that's my thing is that no matter how much you learn about gun safety, I mean, it's a GSP with a tracking color versus a coyote. It's a huge difference.
Yeah, they don't look a lot alike. So obviously, again, it's, pure speculation, but I could just imagine, hunters that are excited, maybe haven't seen anything, see this thing with four legs come running in. It's, they've got an e-collar going and they, what else could it be? And it's right there behind that bush. So I'm going to take the shot. Again, that is pure speculation. I have no idea what truly happened, what truly went down, but I could see somebody doing that.
It's just hard to believe that they didn't realize what they were shooting.
Yeah, pretty tough when, there's probably hunters out there wearing a bunch of orange and trucks parked not too far away. And, you
Yeah,
know, I don't
yeah,
know.
no, exactly. I think this is so obvious that how can you make that mistake?
Yeah. So besides the local preserve stuff, what do you have lined up for hunts this fall?
That's pretty much it. We have a busy schedule with the kids. My husband usually travels a lot, so I'm living in that moment of the years with the kids where it's nothing but hardly sleeping, taking kids to school. Now with the puppies, now the puppies are leaving, so I'm really excited about that. We had two litters this summer. and it was fun, but it was nonstop. And it's going to be nice to actually have a season where we have the so-called normal life of just going to school, going to the preserve, and then come home, make dinner, feed all the animals, feed the kids, and then go to bed and start over.
I know when we were talking on the phone yesterday, and I just mentioned that I was waiting outside my kids' swim practice, just sitting in my truck with not much to do, and you said, "Oh, that sounds amazing."
Yeah, just that hour of doing nothing in a truck. Yeah, I would love.
Well, I'm sure your time will come. You'll have an opportunity where you get an hour a day to not be bothered by some random podcaster.
I was gonna say like this was it. This hour was my
I
break.
robbed you. I'm sorry, I stole your hour away from you.
No, I'm always happy talking about dogs.
Well, I'm going to try and give you some time back. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
They're the best. I love them. They're such cool dogs, you know. And I know everybody has their own, but I think they're mine. I think they're definitely mine. I just love everything about them, even their weird stuff.
It's funny what we find endearing, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. How can people contact you if they're interested in talking about wire-haired Vizsla?
I'm on Instagram under Canis Kennels. I have a Facebook page as well, or on my website, cavecanis.com. My email is kata@cavecanis.com, but you can also reach me through the website. Yeah, it's anytime anybody wants to talk about them, let me know.
And just so the people know, it's CaveCanis, and I'll have the website in the show notes if somebody wants to go check out. It's actually a pretty good website. I was all over it yesterday. Really cool.
Thank you. I
Yeah.
appreciate that.
Well, Kata, thanks so much for being on the show. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed it.
I hope you enjoyed episode number 37 of the WOPost podcast. If you did, leave a 5-star review on your podcast platform of choice. Remember to like and follow at the WOPost on Facebook or Instagram, and join our community of patrons at patreon.com/thewOPost. You can contact me for any reason at bill@thewopost.com. Stay steady and God bless.